Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Charley's Journey YouTube channel. I'm Charley. If you are new here, I talk about my journey of healing and recovery from being in a high control religion. I was once a Jehovah's Witness for almost 30 years. So I just talk about how I have dealt with leaving, the consequences of that, etc, etc. You don't have to be an ex-Jehovah's Witness to watch my videos though, so feel free to still subscribe because there may still be things that you can gain of value from my videos. So hopefully you will subscribe. To all my listen to me to all my current subscribers, love you guys, love your support as always, thank you so much. And welcome to all my new subscribers. Guys, this little channel went from like 13, 14 subscribers to, in less than 48 hours, gaining over 50 something of you. Like there's now 50 something of you. Like I woke up and was like, what's going on? So grateful. Like honestly, I know I say it almost every video, but it's because I mean it. I literally started this. It was a hard thing to do. I would be lying if I said it was an easy thing. It was not. It was hard to just bite the bullet and start this channel, but I am so glad I did, because all I wanted was to be of help to someone, and there's now 50 something of you watching me, so thank you so much. 50 something subscribers is not massive in comparison to other YouTube channels, but we don't care about other YouTube channels around here. We're talking about the Charley's Journey YouTube channel and the growth that I've got, and I'm just so happy because I'm getting a bit shy though, because I feel like when there's a smaller group of you, then it's a bit easier to do these videos, but now that there's more of you watching, I'm like, be kind, guys. No, thank you. Honestly, I've had lovely, I literally have not had one horrible comment. I've had lovely comments, lovely emails. Please keep them coming. I'm really enjoying interacting with all of you and getting to know some of you. Yeah, just trying to be of some kind of help and support to you guys, so thank you so much. Just had to say that. Right, she's got her notes right down here. So guys, I'm starting this new series. I talked about it briefly in my previous video, which a lot of you really liked. Again, I think that might have something to do with it. The growth I've had in the last couple of days is that video that I put up on, it was meant to be Wednesday. Your girl was not on point this week, a lot happening, so it went out on Thursday morning. But I've had some really good feedback and everyone seemed to like that video, JW Life. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. I briefly talk about what my life was like as a JW back in the day. And as I said, a lot of you liked it. I did say that I would be starting this new series, and I'm calling it Undoing Indoctrination. My Undoing Indoctrination series. I have had to undo, and it's not even have, because it's not, the work is not done. I'm only 4 years into this journey, so we're not done yet, but we've made progress, and we're making progress every day. So yeah. So today we're going to be talking about doomsday, catastrophe, end of the world. Yeah, all of things encompassing that. I've made this one my first video in this series because I feel like it's quite a big thing with the Jehovah's Witnesses, the whole Great Tribulation and Armageddon thing. It's a massive part of their beliefs, and it was a massive part of my beliefs. So, and it has such an effect, especially if you are someone who has been brought up like me. I've never known anything else since the age of 3 was the Jehovah's Witnesses. So these teachings are super familiar to me. First of all, we'll start with the definition of what is the Great Tribulation and what is Armageddon for anybody who isn't familiar with Jehovah's Witness doctrine. So basically, the Great Tribulation preludes Armageddon, and it's the time that Jehovah's Witnesses believe, from their interpretation of the Bible, that all governments and the United Nations, all these big powerful organizations around the world are going to collectively turn on all religions and ban every single religion. and Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be the only religion left still practicing their religion, still worshipping, etc. They will be the only group of people on the planet that will still continue worshipping. They're going to ignore this mandate, ignore the government. They're going to ignore the United Nations and their request for them to cease their worship and to pack in their religion. Everyone else will abide by it except the Jehovah's Witnesses. And that will then trigger, as I said, what is this Great Tribulation, which is this time, this very unique period in time, which is coming very soon, where anarchy on the earth, and the Jehovah's Witnesses will be specifically targeted by the government for continuing to worship, because they're going to ignore. They will be targeted, they'll be thrown in prison, they'll be tortured, they'll be persecuted in a way that they've never been persecuted before. As I said, they will continue their preaching. That will then trigger off all of this persecution. They'll be thrown in prison, their children will be taken from them, they'll be under interrogation situations where they'll, waterboarding probably, and all kinds of means to get them to give up their faith and get them to tell on each other, snitch on each other, like, where's your elders, tell us where they are, where are your leaders, where's the headquarters, we need to, all that kind of thing. Very dramatic, very movie style type of stuff happening. That is the Great Tribulation. Armageddon, why is it taking me 10 minutes? Anyway, whatever. Armageddon then comes off of the back of the Great Tribulation, because again, their interpretation is that God will let it get to a certain point. So he'll let his people be persecuted, killed, whatever, to an extent, but he won't have them wiped off. Funny enough though, the ones that are in charge, the governing body, will be taken from the earth and taken to heaven at the time when all of this stuff kicks off. I find that very interesting, but conversation for another day. But yeah, the governing body will not have to experience any of this. They will leave. Sorry, it's not funny. They will be leaving their members on the earth to deal with all of that ish, and they'll be effing off to heaven. Wow, not ever allowed that one to sink in, but wow, talk about that. Then God will, as I said, step in, because he doesn't want all of his servants to be dead. Some of them have to survive to see this magnificent display of God's power when he does then come and destroy the governments, basically anybody that is not a Jehovah's Witness, hasn't been a Jehovah's Witness, has left being a Jehovah's Witness. That includes you and I, if you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness, or you've never been interested. You're a good person, but you won't be around anymore. God's going to come, he's going to wipe the earth clean of everybody that is not a Jehovah's Witness, and then he will usher in the paradise, which is the third stage of things. But we're focusing on Armageddon and the Great Tribulation at the moment. So yeah, Armageddon is basically God's war against Satan and his demons, and those on the earth that are followers of him. In case again you're not familiar, when Jehovah's Witnesses hold their meetings, they are not, it's not ever a separate thing where you have a men's section and a women's section, like I think maybe the those who are in Islam, I think they have a women and a men's section, maybe even a children's section, I'm not sure. But there's no separation. Everybody worships together as Jehovah's Witnesses, which means that all the information that is given to them is given to everybody, including the children. And Jehovah's Witness leaders don't believe in shielding the children from any particular teachings. They may modify it slightly so that it's a bit easier to digest or to understand. They don't shield their children from any of the interpretations that they have about the Bible. So as I said, Armageddon and the Great Tribulation were taught to me from the age of 3. I knew about these things, and I knew it from an age appropriate standpoint, which was just that very soon Jehovah's going to come and destroy people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses. That's how I learned it from the age of 3. And it was in the publication that they would encourage parents to study with their children, called My Book of Bible Stories. And that book had many different depictions, visual depictions of destruction from story, obviously from stories based on the Bible, like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, the Egyptians being wiped out by God when the Red Sea, after the Red Sea was parted and it then came down on them. There's the pictures of people falling out of windows when Jehovah came and destroyed Jericho. The whole story of Rahab, if you're familiar with the Bible at all, that's depicted there. So that's something I was exposed to from very young. Images of destruction and God's power and what he will do if you're not obedient. These things do stay with you. These things do affect you. Whether you're aware of it or not, they do. And it puts the literal fear of God in you from very young. And along with that, they had, or still have, Bible dramas that they encourage their congregation members to listen to. So anybody that grew up at Jehovah's Witness, you may remember this, but the different dramas, audio dramas that you would listen to, for instance, again, the 10 plagues was one of them. As I said, Sodom and Gomorrah, and I'm trying to think of another one that frightened the life out of me. Noah's flood. Those dramatized biblical stories were played at night time when I was younger to help me sleep, me and my sister. And when I was very young, under the age of 10, I would be petrified, I won't lie. I would sometimes, and I wonder actually if that is why I would sneak into my mum's bed a lot when I was little, because I was always frightened, very frightened child, frightened of everything when I was little. But definitely that did not help. Listening to God destroying people did not help. And then if there was ever a thunderstorm happening, best believe I was just terrified. I was terrified. If it was a really bad thunderstorm, I'd be terrified, because I would think that Armageddon was coming. And you always are taught from young that there's no guarantees, even though I just explained earlier in the video that as long as you're a Jehovah's Witness, you'll be saved. Even Jehovah's Witnesses are told that there's a scripture that says probably you will be concealed in the day of God's anger. So again, that's not no guarantee. And that is based on what is in your heart and all different things. But again, conversation for another day. Let's not go off track. But the point is, because there's still a level of doubt that could I make it? Could I, is there a possibility that I might not make it? I was petrified. And that stayed with me into adulthood. Always thinking it could be any moment now. And if you're not on point with what you should be doing, you're petrified. You're thinking, oh my gosh, my time's up. My time's up, and he's going to come and it's not going to be good for me. Along with the dramas, along with the My Book of Bible Stories, as you get older and you can comprehend things a bit more and understand things a bit more, loads of the publications that the Jehovah's Witnesses produce talk about and depict illustratively, as I said, accounts from the past, Bible stories, but also what they believe, their depiction of what they believe is going to be happening in the future. And every member is encouraged to read these things to build up their faith, to strengthen their faith in God's promises, and as I said, to teach their children to stay in line. And you think about it, when you're ruled by fear, then of course you're going to be kept in line. Of course you're going to, whether you want to or not, whether you agree with it or not, of course you're going to do your very best to be a good little JW, child or adult, because in the back of your mind always is looming that there's a consequence that's about to happen any moment now. And they talk about the fact that it's coming as a thief in the night, all this kind of element of surprise. Like, they obviously say there's signs that you can look out for to show that we're close to that time, but they've been saying that for years. But they believe that it's all very doom and gloom. They believe that the world is worse than it's ever been throughout history. Not true, because hello, being a person who looks like me, I definitely would prefer to be living in 2023 than 1823 or 1723, because we know what was happening to people that look like me back then. So what? Anyway, so you're encouraged to continually remind yourself that it's around the corner, this is going to happen. Prepare your children, prepare yourselves, read articles, watch their videos, listen to their dramas. Just continually remind yourself of what's ahead of you. And I remember there was a point when I was about 9 years old, and I had gone, because I really loved reading, I still do, I love reading. I had read one of their publications called The Yearbook. It was an old yearbook though, and it was, in that particular yearbook, I had read a section, and I can't remember which African country it was, but it was an African country, talking about, looking back now, it was probably, what I was reading probably pertained to something like what happened in Rwanda with the Hutus and the Tutsis, the war that was happening. In a lot of African countries, Jehovah's Witnesses are not liked, they're not, they're persecuted. And a lot of African Jehovah's Witnesses have lost their lives, been tortured, been imprisoned for years for being Jehovah's Witnesses. So anything to do with, because Jehovah's Witnesses are not political, they don't get involved in any political activity whatsoever, it means that they obviously put themselves in a position where they do get targeted because they don't comply with, for instance, if they need to carry a card, a specific political card around, or if they need to salute to a particular party or say or vote or whatever. If they choose not to do these things, then they're going to be persecuted in certain countries where there's less protection than in Western countries. Anyway, I was reading this yearbook. It was talking about what the persecution that these Jehovah's Witnesses had been going through at the hands of their government, and it was horrific. And it stayed with me because there was mention of torture, there was mention of pain, there was mention of beatings, children being separated from parents. And I remember I was so perturbed, so upset and in distress, because remember I was 9 years old, and I went to my mum and said to her, is this going to happen to us, or I'm scared, can this happen in this country? When you're little, you don't understand things. So I was like, is this what's going to happen to us over here? Could this happen to us? And she was like, this right now, this probably won't happen because we live in a very safe country and there's rights and etc. But she did explain to me that this scenario could probably be linked to what is going to happen in the Great Tribulation when religion is banned, because there'll be no protections for any Jehovah's Witnesses at that point. No matter what country you live in, there's no protection there. So I was bricking it, thinking, oh my God, this is what we're going to have to face. And not only are we going to have to face this, but we're going to have to remain faithful. I was like, and I remember saying to her, how am I possibly supposed to comply when they're threatening my life? How am I possibly supposed to not give them the information they want, or just, as I said, just comply? As a kid, because I always thought Armageddon was going to come when I was little, I always thought the Great Tribulation and Armageddon was going to come when I was little. So I was like, I remember feeling so heavy, like that is such a weighty responsibility for a child. Like, how am I supposed to Like if they're threatening my life or they're threatening my family's life, I'm going to want to save myself and my family. But I was also told that that would be wrong, that would be sinful to save my life and save my family's life. I was taught that if you really love Jehovah, if you really trust in him and believe him, you will do whatever you need to remain faithful, even if it means giving up your own life. And that was something that I always struggled with. I always was like, I don't know. Yeah. And especially when I had my children, once I had given birth to my children, I could not genuinely and honestly say that I would be okay with what I had been taught as a child happening to me and my children, and me being like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's it. Take my kids. Yeah, that's it. Torture me, torture my children. Pardon? It was hard. It was very, very hard to deal with up here. So what that did, and what I believe it does to many Jehovah's Witnesses, argue if you like, I'm just saying what I believe. What that does is puts you in a perpetual state of fight or flight, and you live in fight or flight. So it's not like just when you're learning about these things, it puts you in that state. My belief is most Jehovah's Witnesses live their entire existence in a state, in a subconscious, because I don't think it's necessarily always conscious. Some of them might be conscious of it. But I believe that subconsciously, at least, a lot of them, a large majority of them live in a perpetual state of fight or flight. Apologies, the lighting has suddenly gone because I feel like the heavens are going to open. The sky is going to open and it's going to rain. So apologies if the lighting goes funny. So living in a perpetual state of fight or flight, what does that then do to your nervous system? To your stress levels, to your, just physiologically, what does that do to you? I knew too many Jehovah's Witnesses that suffered with depression, anxiety, and silent illnesses that doctors can't really explain the origin of, other than concluding that it's stress-related. Stress-induced, stress-related illnesses that cause a lot of damage to the body. And of course, it would make sense that being the case if your brain is constantly switched on to doom, you're constantly catastrophizing things. Oh, sorry if that's not a word. Catastrophes constantly on your mind. You're constantly living on the edge, thinking, could it be today? Could it be tomorrow? Am I doing what I should be? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my children? Like, that's no way to live. That's no way to exist. And of course, that is going to have an effect on you. We know that stress kills. Stress does a lot of damage to the body. We're told that don't stress, don't, anxiety, all those kind of things destroy the body, gives you headaches, makes you not able to eat, not able to sleep, causes sometimes nerve damage to the body depending on how severe the anxiety and the stress is. Like, it destroys your joints and your muscles. Like, it is bad. That being said, what did I do? What did I do to undo this indoctrination, now that we've talked about it briefly? What did I do to get over it? So one of the first things I had to do was research my beliefs. When I first left the organisation, I didn't know what I believed. I didn't know if there was bits I believed and bits that I didn't. I didn't know anything. I was kind of lost. But having left them, the whole Armageddon, Great Tribulation thing was on my mind, because it's one of the most impactful indoctrinations that they teach. So even though I had left and I felt free and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me anymore, in the back of my head I was still like, however, am I a goner? I had made peace with the fact that I might have been a goner. I genuinely was like, it's fine. I will live however long that is left of this life in freedom and happiness and joy. and I am ready to go if it is true. But yeah, especially because I left at the end of 2019 and then straight into the global lockdown situation that we had, which then made me think, oh my God, they were right. Oh my God, look, so much terrible things that's happening. Oh my God, oh no, this is really it. But through my research, is I believe what my logic told me, what my, just what my own guidance told me, I was able to alleviate myself of that fear. Like, it's not there, it's not on my radar, it's not anything I subscribe to the point where I was just like, oh, so sad that I used to think that. So sad. But I don't beat myself up about it because, goodness me, I was a baby basically when I was introduced to these teachings, these so-called factual teachings. I was a baby, so I don't beat myself up about that. I had to rationalize things in my mind. This is just for me. I'm not saying anybody has to do this, but I did. I had to rationalize them in my mind. I had to proper write things down and think, take this and does that make sense? And then when this happened, if that Bible story was true, then does that even make sense? I had to rationalize it in my head. And like I said, even after doing that, it still took me 2 years to kind of completely get it out of my head. But the main point was that I said, even if it was true, even if it were true, would I go back to being a JW? Never, never. I would accept my fate. If they believe that there is a God that could do that to somebody who is not wicked, I accept that. Because if you guys genuinely worship a God who would destroy me, even though I'm not wicked, bad, or evil in any way, but just because I no longer believe it anymore, that's the type of action that your God feels that I am deserving of. Me and my children are deserving of losing our lives just because I couldn't take the JW life, or I didn't, my beliefs around that whole thing had changed. Then I feel more sorry for you, that's who you worship, and you're at the mercy of that individual. I'm not fearful of being at the mercy of that individual. If that person really was to exist or does exist, and that is what my fate is, I accept it. My freedom, my happiness means more to me, and even if I have only a few years of experiencing that, that's fine with me. That's fine with me. Yeah. And then lastly, I just had to be patient and kind with myself, because it is a journey. It is a definite journey. Indoctrination of any kind will take a long time to undo, but a lifetime from being a baby to being a fully grown adult with my own children, I had to stop at times when I still believed in Armageddon and the Great Tribulation, and just be patient with myself. Sometimes I would have a little cry and just think, oh my gosh, like, if this is true, yes, it's okay for me to be scared. It's okay for me to be scared. I tried not to block those feelings. I tried not to suppress anything, and I didn't rush the process of getting rid of those beliefs. I didn't force anything. I literally just was kind to myself, because I felt that for so many years that teaching was not kind to me. That teaching was very oppressive and frightening. It made me frightened for a long time. So I told myself, no, I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be patient with myself. And if I do still have days when there's a thunderstorm and I'm thinking, oh my God, this feels a little bit too much, or if I see something, which I don't watch the news, but if I was to stumble across something in the news or on social media, because that's where I get my news stuff from, if I need to know anything about the world that's happening, I generally go social media. I'm like, oh, that's happening. I don't lend my attention to actually watching the news or reading the newspapers and stuff like that. But if I were to come across something that seemed like it was in line with what the Jehovah's Witnesses' interpretation of the Bible is and their beliefs, and it seemed to be backing up what they were saying. I just, as I said, rationalized it and allowed myself to feel whatever I needed to feel, let it out, and was kind to myself and patient, because like I said, it's a journey. When I think of all that I was exposed to, it's no wonder that it takes a lot of people that leave years to get over some of these beliefs. That's why sometimes people need therapy to deal with that level of indoctrination, that particular teaching, especially if you have any connection with anybody that has been persecuted because of their beliefs, people that have been thrown in prison, that may still be currently sitting in prison because they're not giving up their beliefs, anybody that has possibly lost their life over it or had any really horrendous adverse consequence from sticking by their belief. If you are connected to anybody that has experienced that, then be patient and kind to yourself. And I can only imagine the level of helplessness and frustration that one would go through wanting to help anyone that they are connected with that is going through that. All you want to do is then help others to see and be free and be happy again and gain their liberty and their freedom. But as I said, kindness, being kind to yourself, being patient, you will get there. So that's today's video, the first in my Undoing Indoctrination series. Hope that you liked it. If you did, please share it with anybody that you feel like it may benefit. Please give the video a thumbs up, it really helps. And of course, subscribe. And I will see you on Wednesday with my next video. And until then, all the best, everyone.